Hello and welcome back to another edition of Sports and Spiritual Things. I'm your sports pastor, Dr. Andrew Patton. I'm so glad to be with you again. And you guys are really showing out and showing up and supporting the podcast. We know that this is a unique type of format, but hey, I'm unique. We're unique. That's what we do. I mean, the creative in me always has wanted to be my own guy, do my own thing. I'm really excited about these times that we live in digital media. We get to create content that is counterintuitive. It is productive, not counterproductive, but productive in a space to whereas guys like me get to really tear up some narratives that floats out there in the national media and even in the podcast sphere, right? And some of us are becoming national talking heads, so to speak. I never thought I'd see today, even with all of my media training and all the people that I've admired over the years, that we get to a place like this. But I'm glad to be a part of the whole minutia of it all. So let's get into it. A to Z Creative Studios, thank you so much for doing what you do always, making me look good and even look better than I already do. Let me brush my shoulders off real quick. Shout out to the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. You see, I got my pink going. You know, I ain't never scared to wear pink, you know, because real men wear pink. But anywho, let's get into this episode because I am really interested in just taking looks back every now and again. You know, I'm a historian by nature, not just a sports aficionado, but literally I love history as a whole. And sports history to me has always been intriguing. Here's why. Because when you look at sports and you look at the dynamics and you look at the history of it all, one Lamar Jackson is a guy that I believe has defied a lot of the different odds for when it comes to expectations at the quarterback position, when it just comes to not only at the quarterback position, but just when we look at sports, when we make our predictions and we pick winners and losers and we pick people that we like to root for. We like the Brock Purdy's of the world. We like Steve Nash of the world. We like Lamar Jackson, right? We like all these different type of stars, or Kurt Warner. You know, the list goes on and on. The late Steve McNair coming from an HBCU, and I can even remember hearing the commentary about all the talking heads and experts that was evaluating his draft way back in 95, almost 30 years ago, where they said that, hey, he ran a primitive offense in college, only to lead a team to the Super Bowl and to earn a co-MVP. You know, so a lot of the times when we look at history, in particular sports history, it seems to always repeat itself. And tonight's episode is called Vengeance is Mine, Says Lamar. Now, I know that there'll be some people that are believers and Christians like me. I don't want you to take it as sacrilege. Just look at it through the lens of creativity. And if you don't, pray for us. We're not trying to be disrespectful. We're just saying that I really believe that Lamar Jackson at some point in time is going to have his vengeance. Here's why I believe that. We see that Brock Purdy is in the Super Bowl. We see that a lot of people are rooting for him because he is the underdog, and rightfully so. I wish him all the luck in the world. I'm not expecting him to win the Super Bowl. He may. If he does, congratulations. If he didn't, it's not even I told you so. Just means that the Kansas City Chiefs were just better, and that happens. But even with that being said, when I look at a Lamar Jackson and I go back and I watch a lot of the tape and the commentary about his draft class back in 2018, when Sam Darnold and all of those guys was in that quarterback class, and so many people was basically trying to figure out a way how to tear down Lamar Jackson. You know, there were so many comparisons about who Lamar could be and won't be. And, you know, Michael Vick was the obvious comparison. There was a lot of commentary that talked about Lamar being the most athletic quarterback and the fastest quarterback since Michael Vick, which was actually right because he went on to break a lot of the single season records that Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick set as a quarterback who was a dual threat, who could run the ball, who could throw the ball. You know, Michael Vick was the first quarterback to actually rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Well, Lamar eclipsed that and some. So with that being said, the comparison was okay. but nobody ever compared him to Steve Young. Think about that. Nobody ever said Roger Staubach. Nobody ever said Fran Tarkenton. These were running and mobile quarterbacks that were not as scrutinized as, say, Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson, Steve McNair. The list goes on and on. You see where I'm going, right? And I'm not a guy that really believes that you have to hammer down racial issues in sports, but who are we kidding here? This is America. I'm an African-American man. I understand that there are certain, and not in all cases, because everybody doesn't see life through that lens. There are a lot of great people out there that really can see ability. Let's give some people some credit. Let's give Mike Mayock some credit. Mike Mayock, during his draft evaluation of Lamar Jackson, was very emphatic about not only Lamar not switching positions, but knowing that he had the skill set and possessed the skill set to be a quarterback, right? Stephen A. Smith, right? He's a black man. He had his doubts, overwhelming doubts. And really, honestly, I think that Stephen A. Smith, though he's gotten better with his coverage and his analysis at football, it is not a very natural talent for him. I think that he leaned into a lot of what was being said, and it was just easier to go that way. But when you look at Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, that was the class that he came in. And you can arguably say he's been better than all those guys. He's got 2 MVPs, right? He's went further than, I think Josh Allen has had a conference game appearance, just like Lamar has, and both of them lost to Patrick Mahomes, who right now many are touting as the best quarterback in the league now, and they will be right, just based on 4 Super Bowls and 5 trips. So if you lose to that guy, I'm trying to figure out where the shame is. I'm trying to figure out why the goalpost for him, or at least the scrutiny, because and Chris Sims was another guy that really had a lot of great commentary about Lamar Jackson, saying that out of all the quarterbacks in that draft class, he said that he thought Lamar Jackson should be rated number 1, when everybody had that thing flipped right upside down. They really did. And Bill Polian really got the most mileage out of his commentary, because Bill Polian is the guy that was credited with building several franchises in the NFL. You listen to a guy like that, right? He was credited with taking Peyton Manning over Ryan Leaf, right? And it worked out, right? But at the same time, doesn't mean that Bill Polian can't be wrong. And if we're going to be flat out honest, he was dead wrong, right? And now the narrative has changed. Even watching Lamar go through a lot of the contract scenarios and people questioning whether or not he was worth the long-term investment, and even his own franchise, even, right? It was almost like, hey, we liked you when we picked you at the bottom of the first round, and we didn't have to pay you a lot of money, but now that we got to pay the piper and we hadn't quite won that bowl yet, or we hadn't quite gotten over the hump yet, then maybe we could be a little bit tight with the wallet. And they did their due diligence. I'm not mad at them for playing chess while Lamar was playing checkers. But let's be honest here. Joe Flacco, even though he's still playing, right? When he got drafted, you can go to my Facebook page and look it up. When he got drafted, I told the Ravens fan base back in 2018, that's your quarterback. He's going to replace Joe Flacco by midseason, and it happened. Why did I know that? Because I knew that Joe Flacco was a good quarterback, got a Super Bowl, had that run, and even he went through what he went through. So it wasn't just about Lamar Jackson being a black quarterback per se. I just think that the ownership of the Ravens was cheap, right? They want to see a little more. That's what they did with Joe. Hey, look, I'm fair-minded if you can call me anything, right? Some people may say that's the race card. Okay, whatever. But if you'll listen long enough and hear me out, I'm a journalist. Okay, I study to show myself approved. I'm a sportscaster or a sports pastor that need not be ashamed, because you know what I do? I do my homework. I do my research. If I'm going to put my mouth on somebody, I'm going to make sure I'm informed. And when I tell you that Bill Polian and a lot of these so-called GMs, or even Colin Cowherd, another national talking head, so to speak, or another national journalist that really basically just really shot the man's career down before it even got started. Now, to his credit, he's backpedaled, right? He's always talking about Lamar, and he's talking about Josh, and he's talking about those top tier quarterbacks. And look, it's okay to be wrong. But here's what I'm saying. Why is this episode called Vengeance is Mine, says Lamar? I'll tell you why. Because the issue is that even though Lamar Jackson has 2 MVPs, he got his money. It looks like for the next 7 to 10 years, he's probably going to be the franchise quarterback for Baltimore. That's what it's looking like right now, barring any injury, barring he decide that he wants to go in somewhere in free agency and another team wants to, back up the Brinks truck and pay him what they think he's worth to come play for him or them. Then yeah, but this is a franchise quarterback. And when you see it from that perspective, and when we talk about vengeance, I think that the book is still being written on Lamar's career. So many people want to act like that it's already closed because even that was Dan Campbell that was saying that, but I don't hear John Harbaugh saying, "Well, this is as close as we're gonna get." John Harbaugh is the kind of guy. He's won a Super Bowl already. His father was a Hall of Fame college coach. His brother just won the national championship, was just within a hair and a flag from getting a Super Bowl when he coached 9 years ago or 10 years, 13, 12 years ago, whatever it was. I mean, so he comes from the right family. But understand this. When you look at Lamar and you look at the makeup, all the doubt, all the minutia, I think that this kid still has his best days of football are ahead of him. And when I've been on some podcasts, I've been in some conversations when people really, really broke down the AFC Championship game. And some of the things that I heard felt like some of that stupid commentary. And sorry if that offends you, but stupid shouldn't be a bad word. I hope that don't make you fire me from your sports pastor or that we're going to pray for that brother. He's supposed to be a man of God. I did say stupid, okay? So with that being said, just stupefying commentary after the AFC Championship game to blame the whole loss on Lamar. And one of the things that I liked about him that let me know, I believe he's going to win a Super Bowl someday. He might not. I'm rooting for him to get one. I hope Josh Allen gets one day. I wouldn't even mind to be mad at Brock Purdy one coming up. I don't really care about some of the stuff that people have vested interest in. And here's what I'm saying, because a lot of people that doubted Lamar, there wasn't named Chris Sims, there wasn't named Colin Cowherd or Bill Polian or any other of those people. And Chris Sims actually was the one that gave him a lot of props. So I don't want to put him in that category with Colin Cowherd and Bill Polian. But here's what I want to say is that when I look at what he's accomplished, and when I look at how he handled the loss based on the commentary from people that blamed him for the loss only, and I get it, the quarterback gets all the blame and all the credit. The quarterback is going to get the lion's share of the credit even when they don't play so well. A la what happened with Brock Purdy. He didn't play that well in the playoffs, but he's in the Super Bowl. What's the narrative? We heard what Ryan Clark said. I mean, a guy that had been really saying things about Brock Purdy just being okay. And shouts out to the episode before, he's just pretty good, right? I mean, so with that being said, when I look at Lamar, and I'm not saying that Lamar is just great. I think he's good. He's had some great moments. Greatness is just on the cusp. I think it's right there. He can probably sink his teeth into greatness because let's just go with the facts. He's 2-3 in the playoffs. Okay. That's under 500 in comparison to a Patrick Mahomes who's 14-3 and who might be 15-3 when this airs. It might be a different. I mean, can you imagine if you're Patrick, you're 15-3 and you're not even 30 yet, and the next guy in front of you got 35 of them, and you're only 20 playoff wins from that? Lamar ain't there yet. Is Lamar a guy that you would want to start your franchise with, though? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, hey, everybody's not going to drive a G Wagon, but would you drive a 4Runner? Yeah, I would. I would. If that's what my money could afford. If I could drive, and I'm not saying he's a Kia, but help me with the analogy. If he's a if I got a choice between a Kia and a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, I think I'll take the Kia. What I'm saying is the dumb commentary that we're hearing about he lost the game. He shouldn't have thrown that interception. Nobody talked about Zay Flowers. Nobody talked about the spotty refereeing, or at least the spotty referee calls or calls that didn't happen. Several calls that could have been called that we saw called for Kansas City. And guess what? I don't know if the refs knew this, but the Ravens was at home. You expect in certain regards, you're gonna get some calls to go your way at home. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying as a sports fan, I've always thought that there was some decided advantages when you're the number one seed and you're at home. And I'm saying to you that most of the commentary out there is, oh, Lamar can't throw an interception. Well, he's throwing the interception. Why? Because he's trying to play to the time and the clock, and he makes a throw that he probably doesn't make. Because let's go over his numbers. Out of the 3,600 passing yards, 24 touchdowns passing, 5 rushing, 29 total touchdowns. And when you look at the pass to touchdown to interception ratio, regular season 24-7, the guy is in double digits in a 17-game season. So it's not like he's an interception or a turnover machine. He ain't Josh Allen. Dak Prescott had 15 the year before. Cut that down drastically this year. He's not Brett Favre. He's not George Blanda. He's not Jameis Winston. These are guys that I'm talking about 20. I think Brett Favre had 2 years at least where he had 20 plus interceptions. And you liked him. He was a gunslinger. That's what you called him. That's what you said. So when you understand the perceptions, the egomaniacal commentary of just being right, a lot of the people that was tearing Lamar Jackson down was the ones that was tearing him down when he was about to get drafted. They really want to believe in their heart of hearts that this kid can't do it. This guy can't play at this level. Like people were saying, like some of the commentary I was watching, they said that, oh, he's too short. He's 6'2.5". What are you talking about? We got a guy, Kyler Murray, that was the number one pick a few years back, who is 5'10" at best. Number one pick. Drew Brees, they listed him as 6 foot. He wasn't 6 feet. Maybe in cleats. The great Doug Flutie, who really everybody that's under 6 feet should be thanking him, because he was the first one to really show that if you could throw the pill, you could throw the pill. All these things about small hands and if you could see over the line and all these dumb things. Guys like Mel Kiper. I didn't see any commentary about Mel Kiper, but I'm sure he probably went wild about it, because Jimmy Clausen is still his guy, right? The guy that never was, a guy that never lived up to the hype. At least Todd McShay, he had his challenges, but Todd McShay could see it. So there was some people that was on his side. But I think that Lamar Jackson, what made me really like him was his press conference after the game. I didn't see him pouting. I didn't hear him blame referees. I didn't hear him blame the game plan. And here's what he said. He thanked his coaches. He thanked the fans. He took responsibility and accountability for his play down the stretch. He said he was proud of his guys, and he had the opportunity to really throw Zay Flowers under the bus, because we've seen other franchise quarterbacks do that, right? I've seen Peyton Manning in his prime do that. I've seen some other guys do that with play. I saw Dan Marino do it. And you know what? Nobody said anything, because those guys were considered by the sports universe or the sports collective of talking heads, or as we like to call them affectionately, wink, the media, gave those guys passes. But the one thing that I didn't hear in the commentary was how Lamar Jackson said, I'm proud of my guys. Our first year coordinator, we got further than we ever have with this guy being the coordinator first. Never mind that this was the weirdest game plan out there. If anybody could have said that, it could have been him. He could have took the road of coded language, of really, straight bullets to his coaching staff, to the players, to his line. He could have did all those things, and he did not do so. If that's not the sign of a franchise quarterback, or if that's not the sign of a guy that's probably going to win a championship at some point in his career, maybe, and get vengeance from all of this dumb stuff, all this nonsense about how he plays the game, if he's going to get hurt. And even when he was going after his money, after this guy had an MVP, had been the sole reason for these guys turning around, not having a superstar receiver outside of his tight end, Mark Andrews. And as good as Mark Andrews is, no shade to him, but he's no Travis Kelce. He's not Gronk. So he's a little bit of a step. He's a step below that. There is no Pro Bowl wide receiver on that team. Hadn't had one. Remember when Donovan McNabb finally got Terrell Owens? They got to a Super Bowl. Without Terrell, they went to 5 straight NFC Championship games, and they were sent packing because he's throwing the ball to Todd Pinkston. No shade, Todd. Come to the show if you want to. Don't beat me up if you see me in the mall. But I'm just saying, there's a talent disparity. When you look at great wide receiver versus or wide receiver quarterback duos, where's Lamar's? Where's his Jerry Rice? Where's his Chris Carter? Where's his Sterling Sharp, who should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way? If Terrell Davis is in there, he definitely should be there. If Gale Sayers is in there, these are guys that play 7 years or less. I think that even Tony Baselli got in too. He retired early. Okay, I digress. This is a. I could do another show about that. But the point is, the guy doesn't have his Batman. He doesn't have his uncoverable receiver. He's not like Terry Bradshaw with Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. You got to understand these things. That's why sports history, that's why it matters. And the way this young man, under 25, well, he's 26, 27, somewhere in there, to speak that way, to speak with that kind of leadership, to be self-aware enough to know that this is my first year with an entirely different regime and scheme. Now, granted, I don't know what went on in that AFC Championship game that will cause them not to let not only Lamar have more running opportunities, even though he rushed for, I think, a shade over 60 yards. He had 821 rushing yards this year. So you do the math. He runs the football enough. But you can tell that this is a year he didn't crack 1,000. So that means that he has some help from other running backs on the team. And in the AFC Championship game, they ran the ball, I think, a grand total of 6 times. 6. It's 7 days in the week. They ran the ball 6 times. And you would think that if the running attack has been your bread and butter, also anchored by Lamar Jackson and RPOs and those kind of things, that's the run-pass option. We didn't see that. And yet Lamar Jackson, by most accounts in the commentary, was blamed for the fact that he should have ran more. Oh, and I even thought about it for a second. I had to not get indoctrinated with what I was hearing, and then I had to pull back and really think about it. When I looked at the numbers of how many times he actually ran the ball, how many yards he got, I was like, well, that's kind of his average for the year. If he's got 800 yards rushing. So technically, he did run the ball enough. And when you have a double spy on you, that means that you just can't tuck the ball and run because you're probably going to get hit for a loss or probably get knocked out the game. So that made more sense. So I'm confused why my fraternity brother, Ryan Clark, was saying the stuff he was saying. It made no sense. It's right there on the tape. A double spy. Most guys that are threats to run only get one spy. He had two in certain parts of the coverage. So when you understand it from that perspective, then again, the stupefying comments of he should have ran the ball more versus why didn't the offensive coordinator call more running plays for other people to then open up the passing lanes, because Kansas City struggles with the run. They always have. During this whole Patrick Mahomes run, they've never been a great run-stopping team. Their defensive line has improved. Chris Jones can get after the quarterback, but it's not been a great run stopper. Where was the play action? We didn't see, I think that Mark Andrews only had 2 catches. Now, I know he was fresh off an injury. I get that. But let's make sure we understand how this game really went and how the season really went. This guy and this team went into San Francisco a Super Bowl favorite because I thought it was going to be the Ravens and the 49ers in the Super Bowl. They went to San Francisco and decapitated those guys. Brock Purdy struggled. That was during that losing streak that they had. And Lamar Jackson carved up that defense that was supposed to be good. And they were. They had their moments. All teams are going to have their moments because you just have matchups. Every team has weaknesses. But again, the narrative about Lamar being able to run the ball and run the ball more would have saved the game. It's just not true. Because the game tightened up for both teams. In fact, Kansas City scored 17 first half points. They go in the locker room up 17-7. They don't score another touchdown. Now, granted, the Ravens only scored 3 more points themselves, but wait a minute. You have a fumble on the 1-yard line. That's not Lamar's fault. You have a taunting penalty. That's not Lamar's fault. You have a holding penalty in the middle of the field that probably should have been called with pass interference that was not called. You have some breaks. You have some undisciplined football that is played by the Ravens. That's the part that shocked me the most. And do you know where discipline comes from? Care to answer that question for 1,000, Alex? Comes from coaching. Comes from the head coach. Comes from position coaches on defense, on offense. When those kind of things happen, you got to get in your guys' face and let them know and remind them what's on the line. Well, they've been that way all year. The Dan Campbell excuse. No, ma'am, no, sir. That's not what you do when the game is on the line and you got a chance to advance to the Super Bowl. Because if you want to talk to Dan Marino and ask him, do these chances come back around again? No. He went in his second year and never got back there. Ask any other guy like Jake Delhomme that got to a Super Bowl and lost by 3 points on the foot of Adam Vinatieri, never got back there. Ask other guys that even won a Super Bowl and never got back there. As great as Peyton Manning was all those years with Indianapolis, he only took them to the Super Bowl once. So this narrative of the quarterback is the sole reason why teams go to the Super Bowl, let alone win. I know there's certain times, hey, if we go back to the Super Bowl a few years ago, because this is a rematch between the 49ers and Kansas City, Jimmy Garoppolo makes a pass, it might be a different game. He missed it by a few inches, and they lost the game. And Garoppolo is not even on that team anymore. That's just how close winning and losing is. Or as the age-old adage of the wild world of sports in my childhood in the late 70s and early 80s, when you would hear them say that the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It is agonizing to lose those kind of games. And yet for Lamar Jackson to stand tall, 10 toes down, and face the music, take tough questions, listen to the commentary, not just the commentary of after he lost. We're talking about how this has been going on the last 7 years with this guy, since he got in the league, before he was even drafted. These were issues. These were challenges that they were trying to get through, or at least he had to get through, to make sure that he understood the fact that this is what I'm up against. This is what people expect of me. This is what people believe or think that I'm going to be. And for somebody like that to be able to handle this kind of scrutiny and kind of pressure, to be one of the 32 men in this league that get to start week after week, who has been a leader, no off the field issues, where all of his teammates, past or present, love him. All of his coaches, from Pop Warner to the pros, all of them speak highly of them. When his mother negotiated his contract and people thought he was crazy and he got the bag, now what? Oh, I know what it is. We have to lean into dumb commentary, because here's the truth. We want to be right so bad in the media community that we do not break down this man's skill set. We do not hold accountable other quarterbacks, or we don't look at the game from an expanded view. We just take the narrative of what's hot. And I say this because in the podcasting world, even in the national media, this has been mistaken as journalism, and it's not. It's one of those things that boils my blood, in particular for those that have the stage to really be objective, and they're not. And shout out to those that are. This is not indicative of the entire media community. It's not. But there are several, the Emmanuel Achos of the world, that says things that make you say, hold on. And I'm not saying that everything they say is wrong, but there are certain things that you can tell that is really littered with narrative or typecasting of a belief that we should be past in the 21st century. In 2024, we should be past some of the stuff that we've seen. It's one of my dreams someday to have Warren Moon on the show. I'd love to talk with him, because he would know this firsthand. He would understand what it's like to have to go to the Canadian League for 5 years when you're the MVP of the Rose Bowl, or if you're Tony Dungy and you're a pretty decent quarterback in college and you don't even get drafted, or if you're Charlie Ward and you're the Heisman Trophy winner. This is a pattern. This is what we've seen in sports since 1968, since Marlon Briscoe was the first black quarterback, or African-American quarterback, however you want to describe it, to actually play, and he had some success. And when the position, or at least the guy that was starting before him, came back, they moved him to receiver. He wanted to continue to play quarterback, but they wouldn't let him compete. These are the things that Lamar Jackson heard. Now, granted, there's been a lot of guys that have switched positions, and some of them were white. Drew Bennett was a NFL receiver, played for the Titans for a number of years, was a decent receiver, but he was a college quarterback. Matt Jones played for the Arkansas Razorbacks back in the day. He switched positions. So it's not a monolith from a space of black and white. But here's what I will say. It seems as though guys like Lamar Jackson, even with better tape than Drew Bennett, even with better tape than Matt Jones, these guys are acts, or a Lamar Jackson type, or even a Terrell Pryor. And if Terrell Pryor never got in trouble and he's never had to be taken in a supplemental draft, maybe things get different. But he had some flashes at quarterback and nobody wanted to take him again. He switched positions just to get paid. I get it. No shade. But that shouldn't be thrown on everybody. Even an Eric Crouch or Pat White. And both those guys Eric is a white guy, and Pat White is a black guy that played at West Virginia back in the day. Again, this is a mixed bag of a lot of things. Because if Stephen A. Smith can say, I don't think you're a great thrower of the football, and even if you've ever been in the barbershop, and especially before, I believe, where African-American quarterbacks became in vogue, even some of us was like, man, I want my quarterback white. Well, why? I just want him white. They couldn't tell you why. But the problem is we needed GMs that would take the chances on a Rodney Peete, on a Steve McNair, on a James Shack Harris, on a Doug Williams, on a Donovan McNabb. The list goes on and on. Just like they can take the risk on Tim Tebow, who washed out, or Joey Harrington, Achilles Smith. There's so many names. David Klingler. Look, this stuff is in my brain. I can name a bunch of guys that had a multitude of skill sets that a lot of commentators said they would make it. I said Jimmy Clausen earlier. That was Mel Kiper's guy. And what did he turn out to be? Sam Darnold was supposed to be the next guy. Zach Wilson. Nobody said that Zach Wilson was stupid like they said that Vince Young was coming out because he had a low Wonderlic score. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the minutia, but I really believe that vengeance will be Lamar. I think he's already won, whether he wins a Super Bowl or not. I think that's where the people that have had negative commentary, that's where certain people that would like to see him not do so well would like to just make that be the goalpost, kind of like they do with LeBron James. The man's about to score 40,000 points this year, all-time leading scorer, but he ain't better than Jordan. Well, where I'm from, whoever got the most points, that's who's better. At least for me. Yeah, I said that. I know you don't like that A to Z. You can shake your head all you want to and close your eyes like Stevie Wonder all you want to. That's okay. I'm just saying. No, don't give me the wrap it up B sign. I'm on a roll.
That wasn't it. I just said time. That's the difference between the two, time. And Peyton Manning's been to 4 Super Bowls. Just he lost to the Saints. Just saying.
Hold on, wait a minute. You said Peyton Manning been to 4 Super Bowls? Are you sure?
Yep, 2 with Denver, 2 with the Colts, and 2 with Denver. He beat the Bears, lost to the Saints.
Okay, that's right.
Lost to the Seahawks and beat the Panthers.
That's right. My bad. Go ahead. Thanks for the correction. Okay,
I got you. We're gonna keep this integral. Now, how do you tie this into spiritual life?
Okay,
right?
Well,
how do we tie, having all these darts coming at you, and when you, because like I think about the excuse for Patrick Mahomes struggling early on was his receivers couldn't catch. That's why they weren't successful during the season. But like you said, nobody's talking about Zay Flowers dropping the ball at the 1 yard line. Nobody's talking about how he was taunting, which caused them to go back 15 yards. They could have punched it in without even him having to go that far. He was at the 4 or 5 yard line.
That's right.
But nobody's talking about that. So how when your character is being attacked like this from a spiritual component, how do we handle that?
One of the things I like about scripture, it says in Proverbs, the day that you faint in adversity, your strength is small. And one of the things we can really attribute to Lamar Jackson is that this guy he's got not only strength, but he's got faith in himself. And I never hear him talk about faith like that, but the way he carries himself would lead me to assume that he has a really great pulse on something bigger than himself. And I'll leave it to him to maybe say, or maybe someday somebody may send a clip that'll show Lamar talking about his faith, but his strength is not small. And many times with us, when we have all the we have all the lanes in the world to go down, and we can blame other people, right? Well, we could really talk about what we didn't get, and we were shortchanged, and it was because of whatever scenario. Lamar Jackson and vengeance is different because his vengeance is going to come like he always handles himself, which is one of the another spiritual principles where the Bible says, fret not thyself against evildoers. Am I saying that everybody that disagrees or has a stake in his demise or want to see him not be successful? No, I'm not saying that they're evil, but I am saying that you can't worry about what people say. And that's what I think Lamar Jackson has always done, even from the day he got drafted. His attitude, we've seen people in the green room get taken late that was supposed to be in the first round. We saw Aaron Rodgers back in the day. We've seen some other guys that were supposed to be high draft picks fall way down in the draft and have to really account for what that feels like because cameras are in your face and they're really testing you right there. I think a lot of times when we have our ups and downs in life, it's our opportunity to pass the test. And, most times we don't pass that test. I know there's been many times I didn't pass that test when I leaned into my right to be right at the wrong time. There is a such thing as being right at the wrong time. And Lord knows I've had my fair share of that. And as we wrap up this episode, I want you to think about this from a space of, even though the title says vengeance is mine, says Lamar, that's creative. But we know that vengeance belongs to God. And one of the things that when you seek to be a vengeful person only to show people, some people may argue and say, because they said it, well, the reason why Lamar Jackson didn't run so much because he was trying to prove that he could pass the football. Well, that's already been proven. Lamar Jackson didn't have anything to prove other than to himself and to his franchise and to his city, because he still cashed an $80 million check this year when you said he didn't deserve it. He's still going into his 7th or 8th year in the NFL when you said he'd be hurt by now. So a guy like Lamar Jackson that ignored the boo birds, that, yeah, he heard what they said, but you can tell he really put his nose to the ground. As the Bible says, he got humbled, and now he's been exalted. No, he's not at that Super Bowl winning level yet, but he's got 2 MVPs. He's got the respect of his peers. He's still a nightmare to game plan for each and every week. He's probably going to be that at least for the next 7 to 10 years. And no, he may not be the guys that we talk about at the Holy Grail. He may not ever pass for 50, 60,000 yards. But when you look at what he's accomplished in the face of extreme doubt, the story is still being written. And the attitude that he has, the winning attitude, the leadership that he has, because a lot of times people believe, and I'll say this, I know this is not going to be popular when I say it A to Z, but I gotta put it this way. Michael Jordan punching out people in the locker room or on the court or bullying teammates, as we saw in The Last Dance, was considered leadership. And we celebrated it, which tells you that our society has a very warped view of leadership. I get it. Leadership has different phases and it gets different results. I get that. But I really believe that with a Lamar Jackson and all of us, when we look in the mirror and we look at our peers and we really compare ourselves to our next and our best based on what we did the previous day, I think that we can all take a page from Lamar Jackson. And it's not about vengeance, not about, proving people wrong. But at the same time, it does feel good that when you are humble and you did the right things and not just said the right things, you said the right things, you did the right things, and it showed up on the field. And even if you don't get the ultimate goal, nobody can say that you didn't leave it all on the field. Some might say in this game that Lamar maybe didn't leave it all on the field, and they will be wrong. I really believe that he did. You can tell after he threw the interception, he was upset with himself. That body language tells me, because I've seen other guys pout on the sidelines when they throw an interception like that. I've seen guys check out. I've seen guys leave and not talk to me. I remember when Cam Newton lost that Super Bowl, how god awful he was in the interviews. And I get it. It's a lot of pressure to have to talk to the media after losing a game like that, because it's the biggest game of your life. But watching Lamar handle that and know that he's going to be working hard all offseason to get himself prepared. And I think that's a message for us all as believers or unbelievers, no matter where you may find yourself, is that you may not always meet people's expectations. But the one thing that you can do is continue to fight, continue to be great, and continue to do the best that you can, because it's not about vengeance being yours or not being yours. It's literally about you being the best person that you can be, being the best at whatever it is that you can do. The best results that you can get, you can live with that if you did your best. But it's hard to live with that when you did not. And if you're watching this right now and you may not know Jesus Christ and the pardon of your sins, look, we're just here to not only have a little fun and talk sports, but we're here also to cast our net out, to let a dying world know that we do have a Lord and Savior called Jesus Christ that hung, bled, and died. But that's not how the story ends. Look, he got up on the third day. He came that we may have life and we can have it more abundantly, so we can talk sports and have fun and take certain scriptures and say certain things and be creative. But I'm glad tonight, or wherever you're catching or whenever today, however you catch it, morning, evening, noon, afternoon, doesn't matter. I'm glad to know that my salvation is settled, that my walk with God is settled. I pray that yours is as well. Catch us again for another episode of Sports and Spiritual Things. I'm Dr. Patton. Thank you so much for rocking with us. We'll see you next time. Peace.